Oh boy, I sure do love money, and I love talking about money. Did you know that way back when, in the early 1900s, the United States had these insanely large denominations of dollar bills, which is what we're going to talk about today. Which, thank God, because I like money so much. Yeah, let's go with that. First, let's talk about the $500 bill with lovely William McKinley. To be honest, I'm not too familiar with what William McKinley did when he was president, but apparently it's enough to warrant being on a $500 bill. Here's the back of it too. Picture with the back of it. Not very interesting, I might add. It just says $500 dollars on it, and just has the $500 number, the $500 number written all over it. Not very interesting in my opinion. You could do a little better, whoever designs the dollar, the $500 bill. I think it was first issued. It was first issued in the year 1962. I think I was reading an article that was like, well, the first $500 bill was actually issued by like the state, like one of the original colonies, because like the states at first issued their own currencies, but like then it's like then the Confederacy had a $500 bill, and it's like I'm pretty sure 1962 is the first date that like the United States government started printing the $500 bill, and not like just a state. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but anyways, 1962, that was before William McKinley was even president. Instead, it had this guy Albert Gallatin on it, who I think at the time was the Secretary of the Treasury. So it stopped being printed in 1945, and it was discontinued in 1969. What discontinued means was that if a bank were to receive a $500 bill, it receives like instructions to like destroy it. Like it'll honor it. It'll say that like the bank will say it like, oh, we've added $500 to your account, but they will have to destroy the bill, send in the bill to be destroyed. And the reason for this is that large denominations of currencies have started having a lot of problems. Like Richard Nixon, who was the president at the time that discontinued all these large denominations, was afraid of money laundering, which apparently can be like done easily by, I don't know how money laundering works or what even it is, but apparently that's a problem, right? And also there's a low demand for $500 bills. Who would have thought? Also counterfeiting, pretty bad. You can counterfeit a large denomination, or like if you were to, you could counterfeit a $500 bill in a fifth of the time that it would take you to counterfeit $500 bills. I think. I'm not sure how counterfeiting works. Also, it's expensive to produce these large denominations because like you had to like, it was just expensive to produce. I can't remember the reason why. But if you did have a $500 bill, the thing is, it still is a legal tender. You can actually go and purchase like goods and services with the $500 bills. The only thing is that would be really stupid. You'd probably get the police called on you because not a lot of people know about the $500 bill, even though it is a legal tender. The other reason that it's stupid is that $500 bills are actually probably worth more than $500 bills, like because they're so rare. They can be worth more than like $1,000, for instance. And that's something that actually interests me very much. That there's a dollar bill that's worth more than what it says it's worth. I think that is very interesting. A $500 bill that's actually worth like $1,000. Very, very interesting. But wait, did you know that there's an even higher dollar bill than the $500 bill? Yeah, that's right. There's the $1,000 bill, was Grover Cleveland. Again, I don't know what Grover Cleveland did as president, but apparently it's enough to issue to warrant him being on the $1,000 bill. Here's the back of it. Again, very boring. It just says $1,000 and has the number 1,000 four times. And then the United States of America. Very boring backside to the dollar, I think. Use your imagination a little bit. Come on, guys. Whoever made the design of the dollar bills, I don't know. This one was first printed in 1918, I'm pretty sure. But it was this very similar story to the $500 bill. It stopped being printed in 1945, and then it was discontinued in 1969. But again, these are still legal tender. You can still use them to purchase goods and services. Again, it's very stupid because it's worth more, and people will probably think it's counterfeit even if it's not, which is interesting. Only about $160,000 $1,000 bills are left, it's estimated, which does sound like a lot of bills, I think, until you realize that there's like $12.7 billion. This is very hard. Okay, there are 12.7 billion $1 bills in circulation right now. So compare that to 160,000. 160,000 actually doesn't sound like that much. At this point, it's like 0.1%, something like that, of 12.7 billion. Is that right? Probably. Let's move on to our next. Did you know there's an even higher denomination? The $5,000 bill was lovely James Madison. He wrote the Constitution, I guess, and did the War of 1812, so fine, pretty good president, I guess. Here's the back, pretty boring. Ditto everything. It was first printed in 1928. It stopped being printed in 1945. It was discontinued in 1969. Right, I got all that right. I think it's still a legal tender. But the thing about these $5,000 bills is that there are only like $400 of these dollar bills left. It's estimated. And because of that, these are worth like $30,000, even if it's like in poor condition. At least that's what I read. I think the article said like it can be like worth even more if it's in like really good condition. But there you go. There's your $5,000 bill. But did you know that there's an even higher denomination of bill? Yeah, that's right. There's a $10,000 bill with this guy. His name is Salmon P. Chase, and that's a real thing. Salmon. That's a terrible name, by the way, named after a fish. Salmon P. Chase. Who was Salmon P. Chase, I bet you're wondering. Here's the back. Boring, as you would expect. Salmon P. Chase was the Chief Justice of the United States and Senator and Governor of Ohio. He also, this is probably why he's actually on the $10,000 bill, is because he was the Secretary of the Treasury under Abraham Lincoln, which is a pretty big deal, I guess. First printed in 1918, and all that other jazz. Stopped being printed in 1945. Recalled in 1969. Yeah, you're all familiar with that. There's also only a few hundred dollars. This is so hard to say. There's only a few hundred of these dollar bills left also. So these are also very expensive. I think the article I read said that these can be worth like over like $100,000, which is again very interesting to me. Like that, there's a $10,000 bill, but it's worth like $100,000. It just very, very odd to me. At the time that these dollar bills were being printed, like in the 1920s, this dollar bill would have been worth more than the net worth of like the average American at the time, which I also think is very interesting, that you could hold like a dollar bill. You could potentially hold a dollar bill that was like more than your net worth. Of course, I haven't mentioned at this point, like most of these large denominations of dollar bills, the purpose of them was to be like for transfers in between banks and maybe like real estate purchases. So like they weren't really used by like your average citizen. They were used in like business deals. But there you go. Good thing there aren't any larger denominations of bills. That would be insane. Just kidding. There's a $100,000 bill featuring Woodrow Wilson. Wow. Bet you didn't see that coming. $100,000 bills. It is considered a gold certificate. I looked that up, and it's like a certificate saying like, oh, you have like this much of money worth in gold. Does that make sense? Because like back then they had like the gold standard, so you could like go into any bank and like say like, here's $100, I'm gonna give you that, and you have to give me $100 worth of gold. You could go into any bank and do that. They don't do that now, but back then they had this. Only $42,000 or 400. Only 42,000 of these dollar bills were ever printed. And they were never issued to the public. The public probably never used $100,000 bills, to my knowledge. These were used almost exclusively between Federal Reserve banks, between interactions. That's another reason why these high denomination dollar bills are no longer being used, is because like a lot of these transactions between these banks are done electronically. So there's like no need for an actual like physical high denomination amount of bill. And also, like I said earlier, like there's the money laundering, there's the counterfeiting, and also like these dollar bills are actually very expensive to produce. Like it's actually less expensive to produce like 1,000 $100 bills than one $100,000 bill. I'm not actually sure that's true, but it's probably true. But it's not even a legal tender. This is the $1 bill, I think, that I've talked about. That's not a legal tender. So it's not even legal to collect these types of dollar bills. They do display it at like a few museums, I think. Like I think there's one maybe displayed or at least owned by the Smithsonian, whatever. I don't know how to say that word. Smithsonian. And I think there's also like a few held by the Federal Reserve. Well, there you go. And this one actually makes sense. Like, I know who Woodrow Wilson is. I think he was a bit racist. But that's okay, because this isn't even printed anymore, so it's okay. Well, it's a good thing that there aren't any more higher denomination dollar bills that were ever printed, right? That would be crazy. Just kidding. There's 100,000. There's a $1 million bill. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I searched I searched $1 million bill, and this is what came up, and I thought it was funny, so I put it on here. Yeah. There's not actually a dollar bill that's high. I should be explained, because I think people might be confused. $100,000 is the highest dollar bill that was ever printed by the United States, I think. This is just like, I don't know what this is. This is like a collectible. Why would you want this? But none of the dollar bills that I've talked about hold a candle in comparison to the $100 trillion note from $100 trillion bill from the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, of course, had a period of hyperinflation in the 70s, I think, in the 80s, where they just printed off a bunch of money, and whoops, there's a lot of inflation in Zimbabwe, so they have these really big denominations of dollar bills. I think, what was it? Yeah, so $100 trillion in Zimbabwe dollars is actually not that much in American money. Let me look it up really quick. 100 trillion Zimbabwe dollars would only fetch 40 US dollars. No, not even 40 US dollars, 40 US cents. So this $100 trillion note from Zimbabwe is worth about 40 US cents. Now that is very, very sad, I think. But that is all I have to talk about, so I guess we're leaving it off on a sad note. That's always good advice. Always leave your videos off on a very sad note. Thank you for listening to me ramble about denominations of currencies, and I'll see you in the next video where I talk about something equally pointless. Okay, bye.